Welcome. This is Speedify Live Office Hours. I'm your host, Alex Gizis. This is Kevin Cunningham, the lead developer on Speedify. We are here to answer any of your questions. So we are live. So, wherever you're watching, you see underneath, you can post comments, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, and we will see them and we will be happy to answer them. Funny bit of news that Kevin and I just realized at lunch. Today is the 1-year anniversary of Speedify Live. So it's 1 year ago today that we first posted the now infamous mukbang video, which I would tell you guys to go check out online, but we took it down and deleted it everywhere because it was so bad. So none of you will ever see it if you missed it. So that's good. So yeah, questions about Speedify, fire them off. Questions about the Speedify live stream, post them. And, tell us where you're located. If you're watching, we're super interested in where our users and our viewers are located. So let us know. Hello from the Czech Republic. All right. Eastern Europe in the house. All right. Nice. Happy anniversary. Thank you. Thank you, Speedify Babs. So what do we have to talk about today?
So one of the common questions you get is performance related stuff and how people can maximize whatever performance they're getting through Speedify. So we can talk about some of the options that are available. We do a pretty good job with the defaults of picking what we think you're gonna want for the settings in Speedify, but there's a lot of settings you can tweak if it's not quite right for your scenario. So we can go through and talk about some of those. If we bring up the user interface here, maybe.
All right, I will try to bring up the user interface here, maybe. Woo! There we go. I'll get out of the way, Kevin. You lean in a little more center so you can see you.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that can affect the speeds that you're going to get. Big one is location, where you're located and what Speedify server you're connecting to. So it'll tell you up at the top here, and by default, Speedify will try and pick what it thinks will be the best performing server for you. It checks, servers close to you. It'll check the latency, checks how busy the servers are, checks a bunch of different things, and it tries to pick what the best server is. But sometimes we see where for certain people, they might connect better to a different hosting provider, one versus the other in a particular location, or a particular location might be better for them at a certain time. So sometimes people that aren't seeing good performance might want to switch around and try other servers. So you can do that by going into the menu here and clicking server. And there's a whole bunch of options here. So we have our pre-selected options here. You can do the fastest server, which is us checking all the different servers and picking what we think is the best. Also, if you're on a team with a dedicated server, you can choose to do the closest dedicated server, so that you're just on servers that are dedicated to you and you're not competing with other users. And otherwise, you can go down here. If you do have dedicated servers, they'll show up the different countries here, and you can drill down into what those are. Or you can go down here under manual selection. It shows all the different countries that we have servers in. So if you know that you want to connect to a particular country, you can pick that there. If you select that, that'll just pick, I'm not going to do this right now because it'll disconnect us. But if you just click on that particular country, it'll pick anything from the United States, for example. If I pick the United States or anything from Australia. But you can drill down even further if you know there's a particular city you want to do. We have a lot of different cities in the United States. I could say I only want to connect to Newark, or only Northern Virginia or Chicago. And that's usually as far as most people want to go. If you are trying to debug something with support, sometimes we'll ask you to pick different individual servers. So you could go down and, for example, we have our different list of servers in Chicago here. And so you could pick a particular instance. Sometimes they're on different hosting providers, which might give you slightly different performance for some people, depending on your ISP. So you can go down there and pick.
But in general, don't play with those. I mean, servers come and go. We're adding servers all the time. Yeah. And if you're locked into one server, you will not get the speed benefits of whatever great new servers we have.
Yeah. And we're always checking the load on the servers can change. We're always trying to, when we select the servers, try and pick one with the lowest load for you. So it's generally better to pick one of these top level ones. But if you have a general idea of you definitely want to be in a certain country, you can pick that here. So we go back. So we're connected here. So yeah, server is one thing that can really affect your performance. Your priorities of your different connections can also affect the performance. Generally you want to pick the ones that are your fastest and best performing connections that you want Speedify to use all the time are going to be primary connections. And if you have ones that are more expensive, or if they're a bit on the slower side that you don't necessarily want to try to use them all the time, you can do them as secondary or backup connections. Speedify usually does a good job of filtering out ones that are slow, that aren't going to help in terms of bonding or combining. But sometimes if you definitely know a certain connection isn't going to be fast enough, you can give Speedify hints by setting it to a lower priority. So if we wanted to change priority, for example, we can go here, click on one of the connections, and you have this priority option. So we have different priorities you can pick from. Primary means that Speedify is going to try and use it all the time. You're telling it it's cheap. Secondary means that we'll try not to use it unless we really think we need to. It can end up giving you a speed boost, or if we think the primary connection is going to start failing, then we can kick in and start giving some of the packets to the secondary connection to compensate. Backup means we'll even try harder not to use it. We're not going to use it unless your primary and secondary connections are really broken. In that case, we'll kick in and seamlessly switch you over to the backup connection. And then never, if you have particular connections that you want to tell Speedify never use this, you can set it to never. So sometimes playing around with those priorities can be helpful as well. setting the faster connections to primary connection and moving some of your slower connections back to secondary or backup can help the overall performance.
So look at the graph. We had a nice little glitch.
Yeah. Like here, we can look at what happened here. Seems like we got burst of loss there.
And so Speedify covered for it by starting to use the cellular connections as well as the Ethernet.
Yeah, so yeah, we kicked in and then it stopped. Now it's back to using just the Ethernet right now.
Nice. All right. Does look like a few questions have started trickling in. All right. How much has Speedify changed since you started the show? So how much has Speedify changed in the last 12 months, Kevin?
Speedify? I'm trying to remember everything we did. We change a lot.
It's super hard to tell, right? We do these every 3 weeks. We do a release. And so every release seems so tiny. Like almost nothing changed. But then you look back at a year.
Yeah. There's been
these whatever they are. 18 releases, and you say, oh my god, it's totally different software.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember examples of things that we've done, but we've done some big things this year.
A lot of the improvements around streaming.
Yeah.
Because I broke my ankle testing a prototype of some of that stuff, and now it's all shipped built into the app. And that was last August, the last day of July, did it? Something like that. All right. Now, how does the bypass get to choose which internet source to use?
That's a good question. So we do pay attention to the priorities a little bit in Speedify. So if you set a particular connection to never, we won't use that. But in general, Speedify is going to try and pick whatever the operating system thinks is the default. So whatever your default connection in the operating system is, we'll try to use that. But you can give it some hints with the priorities. If you have particular connections set to higher priorities, we'll try to prefer those and take that into account. But yeah, it's usually, we don't have an explicit setting where you can say use this connection all the time for the bypass. We don't have that at the moment, but it'll generally try and do whatever it thinks is the default from the operating system.
Well, now Android, sometimes we actually tell the operating system to handle it for us, in which case it is the operating system. So yeah. And the operating system on Android is same as iOS. If there's Wi-Fi, use it.
Right.
If not, cellular. Right.
Yeah.
Not that complicated. Kill it. All right. Hi guys, I have no complaints. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
Thank you. Question of the day is, how have you used Speedify? I assume that's a question for those of you in the audience. Tell us how you're using Speedify. Guys, would you recommend me some streaming platform where I do not have to worry about copyright troubles, like interrupting the stream while being live?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We work with pretty much anything. You find a platform you're happy with, Speedify will provide the underpinnings. Yeah. All right. You could make any, I assume, Speedify Twitch emotes. What would they be? So that'd start with the logo. And then my face. I mean, who doesn't want to look at this? Tragic. So do follow us. Every Wednesday we get on Speedify developers and we answer any questions you have. Tuesdays, Thursdays in general, we usually have interesting guests doing interesting things with streaming. Tomorrow we have Mike Castellucci, the creator of the hit show Phone It In. We'll be talking to him. On July 12th, we're going to do some IRL stuff. We're going to go out and hit the Chinese Lantern Festival in Philadelphia. Got some new toys to try. I don't know if these are going to work. Some of our previous IRLs, we've actually had problems with phones overheating. So I bought these passive cooling strips to put on the back of your phone. Hard to say if it's a tinfoil hat or a real improvement, but we're going to give it a try. All right. And whoop. Let's see. After that, on the 14th, we'll be talking to Haley, the producer of Fast Mail's podcast. Fast Mail's pretty awesome. And on the 19th, we're going to do the IRL thing again from the Milk Boy Beer Garden in Eakins Oval. So right in front of the Rocky Steps. we're gonna have a beer and live stream. So that will be quite fun. So you guys are pretty quiet today. Normally you guys are barraging us with questions about putting Speedify on routers and things. So come on, give it to me. Yeah. Have you run into any constant issues with IRL streaming? So what we do is we use an iPhone, a Pro, because they have such nice cameras. This one, in fact. And we run Speedify on it. And so it joins the AT&T cellular, and then its Wi-Fi joins the hotspot off this Verizon phone. So now the single phone, thanks to Speedify, is on AT&T and Verizon. So in general, one of them works. So even if you know, Verizon's pretty good, but they do have dead spots. And if you hit one, hopefully it's not the same as the AT&T dead spot. So we've had great success with that. Stabilizer, using a gimbal. We've been using a DJI Osmo 3, which is like a 3-year-old thing, but it's fantastic, right? I mean, the thing that makes cellular video look so crappy and not at all like the beautiful video that, shot with iPhone commercial show is whether or not you're shaking the camera. And so you get one of these robotic arms or one of the poles with a big weight on it, stabilize the video, and you actually do get the kind of fantastic video quality you see on the commercials. So lately, last 2 months, our problem has been phone overheating. Our internet no longer goes out. Our camera is high quality, but heat. It was 91 degrees last time, and walking through the sun.
The battery too. You had issues with the battery going low, right? I'm trying to keep it charged in some cases.
So 4pix videography, Speedify, but in case I cannot influence the background music at a live event, what then? I don't know if there's good software for picking out. It's absolutely true, though, what Quiet Galaxy is saying. Good microphones. We've gone to the Rode mics, with the foam on the end, and you hold them up to people's faces. There was a live stream we did a couple months ago where the band was so loud we couldn't hear each other. So we thought the stream was garbage. And then when we watched the stream afterwards, it was totally fine. It was just us talking about how no one could hear us because the band was so loud. Those mics, they really own 90% just capture, the person who you stick it in the face of. They work pretty well. All right. What else? So what's new in the latest version of Speedify? There was a new version.
We put a new version out. I think was it last week, the week before. That had some last week. It must have been doing some little bug fixes here and there. Trying to remember what we've been focusing a lot on different crashes. We already our crash rate's pretty low, but we've been trying to take down a few more of the kind of low hanging fruit on the crashes there. So we cut that down a little bit more, made it more reliable there. That a couple of users were complaining about things dropping out on them sometimes. So we fixed some of those. And there's some other little bug fixes here and there. We know people have been complaining about, sometimes with the UI, some users have been complaining about the white screens or the UI getting stuck. We've been putting some fixes in for that. So we had some fixes in the last release, and I think we've been finding a couple more issues where we're going to be putting fixes in the next release for that. So I know that's been plaguing some people. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Other just minor improvements under the hood, things like that.
All right. So what streamers are you guys watching? We're always looking for guests. We're trying to interview all sorts of people, interesting people doing cool things to live streaming. Yeah. Who would you like to hear from? Also, are there any software companies? We can get people in the tech industry. We've done a good job of getting, people from StreamYard and places like that here. Is there an option for filtering Speedify CLI stats output on the command line? The output is very long and using JQ to filter JSON at CPU spikes. I'm using it to display stats every sec. On GitHub, there is a project named Speedify Pi, Speedify-py, as in Python. One of the samples is a little program that parses through the output of the stats and just prints certain bits of it. It would be easy to extend to that, and if there was stuff that would make a better example, feel free to suggest it. It's all open source code, but there's definitely a sample there which sits there reading all that output, looking for certain things. I don't remember if it's looking for status changes or looking for new Wi-Fi's or printing a few things. So I think that code is your best starting point to, yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's in the Speedify organization in GitHub.
Yeah, it looks like they.
So here we go. There you go. Yeah. That's the link. Yeah, so if you go look for Speedify in GitHub, it'll take you to the organization. There's a couple projects under there, but Speedify Pi is the first Python program I ever wrote. Be kind. No, you don't have to be kind. Tell me how to make it better, and I'll do it. So none of my code actually goes into Speedify anymore. But I mess around on the outside writing bits of Python to test it, to beat it up, to extend it in weird ways. And so that's a bunch of my code that I use. All right. Where do you come with ideas for stuff to put on GitHub? Where do we?
Yeah, I mean, we don't put as much stuff as maybe we should on GitHub, but when we find things that are generally useful, a lot of times different things that we use for testing internally that aren't proprietary, but could be like general use tools. We've published different things. So yeah, we have the Speedify Python libraries. I know we have, it's actually under our CTO's name, but there's a Docker container for doing WAN emulation that's public. And we use that a lot for doing a lot of our automated testing of testing out Speedify under different network conditions. So yeah, that's another thing that's out there. And there's some other things that have been published over the years that have been useful to us internally that aren't necessarily just specific to Speedify, that are kind of more generally useful. So we put things out from time to time.
What's your favorite way to beat up Speedify? You want to talk about the test town and that?
Yeah, so we have an entire kind of virtualized environment where we run all sorts of tests constantly. 24/7 we have jobs that are running tests against Speedify, and every time no code is checked in, we're running different tests on it. So yeah, we have tests that run all different types of scenarios, different varying network conditions, varies the speeds and the latencies and the packet loss to test how Speedify behaves under different network conditions. And we run it with sanitizers to check for any sort of memory access that isn't, or thread issues, things like that could cause problems. So yeah, we beat it up with a lot of tests constantly, kind of under this virtualized environment.
So let me talk about the virtualized environment, because I don't think you're doing justice.
Okay.
So we take a big Linux server and in Docker containers, they each kind of think they're the only thing running on the machine, will actually run both the Speedify client and the Speedify server. And then between them, so they can't talk to each other directly, we actually run, more Docker containers that each think they're a router, right, with a network emulator to fake different speeds. And so we can say you be 10 megabits, but losing 1% of the packets, and you be 100 megabits and very low latency. And so we wire them up so that the Speedify client has to go through, these two routers, and this one's pretending to be Wi-Fi and this one's pretending to be slow cellular. And we can adjust things on the fly. And then behind the Speedify server, we put a web server, and in front of the Speedify client, we can put some other program like, curl or even speed test. And so we have this whole network of servers and clients and routers, and they're all actually just running on one physical machine in the cloud. Who knows where it even is. So we can just run hundreds of scenarios, right? I mean, we wake up and we've tried 100 different things. We've tried it on slow internet and fast internet, and unreliable internet, and 2 fast internets and 1 fast internet, and slow internet, and just hundreds of combinations, just grinding through for a couple minutes each. And the software thinks it's running on the internet, and it's all fake. It's kind of cool. All right, we're coming up on the end. So please follow us. We will be back next Wednesday to answer any questions that you have by then. Tomorrow, Mike Castellucci, the creator of the hit show Phone It In, will be our guest. So we'll talk to him about making engaging content. On the 12th, we're going to the Chinese Lantern Festival. We're going to try to do some more IRL streaming. See if we can pull off an IRL stream in the middle of the summer without a phone overheating. That would be an exciting change. On the 14th, we'll be talking to Haley, the producer of Fast Mail's podcast. So lots of interesting things coming. So, everything's free. Subscribe, follow, whichever you're watching in. By the way, we're using StreamYard today. So it's Speedify running on this computer, what Kevin showed you, with 3 different internet connections. But the streaming software we're using is just StreamYard in a browser, going to the cloud, and they're taking care of sending this off to Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. Tad G says, for some reason, shortcuts in iOS don't turn off Speedify as expected.
All right, I'll point that out to our iOS developer and take a look at it. Yeah, we haven't seen that on our end.
Yeah, I have shortcuts to make sure Speedify is connected. Actually, don't have any shortcuts to disconnect it. Why would I do that? But yeah, all right. Thank you, Tad. We will look into that and make sure they work or get them fixed for next release. All right. Any final thoughts, Kevin? Anything you want to?
No, I think we covered it.
All right. Well then, thank you, everybody. Oh, look at that. Look. So new thing, we are going to start posting the graphics and stuff, more hints about what tools we're using. Right? Look at this. Right? So Speedify. Oh, I didn't mention Ecamm Live. So use a Mac Mini, and the physical camera is actually going into Ecamm Live. And that's what's switching between cameras here. And then Ecamm Live is acting as a virtual camera going into StreamYard. And this whole stack, so many layers of software, but every layer gives us one more cool effect. Wouldn't be able to do that without Ecamm. So it's awesome. MikroTik's new containers update. All right. Have you tried jamming Speedify into one of those containers?
It says it runs well. The top, the comment above that there.
Yeah, Speedify runs well. Okay.
Interesting. I'm not familiar with that. We'll have to look at it.
Yeah. At one point, that was sort of too stripped down for us. But as things come together, I think we're getting rid of dependencies we don't really need to run on smaller and smaller boxes. And the smaller boxes are, in fact, as CPUs and memory get cheaper, adding stuff. They're adding support for things faster than we're removing requirements. So they may well have come up to the speed where we can run the container. All right. Do it again. More confetti, please. Woo! It's a crowd pleaser. All right. We're at 2:30, so that's it for today. We will be back next week. If you have problems before that, shoot us an email at support@speedify.com. We read and respond to every single email. That's about it. So see you online.